What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be diving deep into the launch maps for Black Ops 7 since they've now all been confirmed, and we've got a good handful of new images on these maps as well, since some of them we have seen like really brief flashes of in reveal trailers, but not really enough to get much information on them. And on top of that, they've now provided descriptions for these, including how big the maps are going to be, whether they'll be small, medium, or large maps. So let's categorize those with a general overview of the maps that we're seeing at launch. As you can see, we've got 18 maps total, 2 of which will be Skirmish Maps, which is a 20v20 mode. So those will be in their own separate playlist, whereas all of the other ones are available in Core 6v6, and some of the small ones will also be available in Face Off. And as you can see, we've got 5 small maps, 2 of which will be in the beta. 10 of these 16 maps are classified as medium size, and 4 of those are going to be in the beta. And then finally, we only have 1 large 6v6 map at launch, and this is Retrieval. And overall, just judging by the sizes of these maps, distribution-wise, I'm liking what I'm seeing here overall. I do generally prefer the medium-sized maps where there's a little bit of room to breathe and think about making plays and stuff, while still having a ton of action so you're not playing like hide and seek or anything. In saying that, I definitely wouldn't have been opposed to seeing one more large map included in there just for variety's sake. I generally don't lean in the direction of wanting to play large maps all that often, but I like that they're there just to mix things up a little bit and provide a more varied experience with the game, but that is being a little bit nitpicky. I am liking the fact that we're primarily seeing a bunch of medium maps here. And I also like the fact that at least at launch, all of these small maps will be available in Core 6v6, and none of them will be strike or face-off only maps. And that's nice to see compared to Black Ops 6 at launch. There were 16 multiplayer maps at launch for that game as well, but 4 of them were strike maps only, so they were only available in the face-off playlists, and if you played regular Core 6v6 modes, you would never see them. This time around, if you play Core 6v6, you have access to 16 maps right at launch. Now, the developers did confirm that down the road, we may see some maps that'll come to the game that will end up being strike only, so they won't be in core rotation. But that's not the case with any of these launch maps, at least. And with that out of the way, let's dive a little bit deeper into the individual maps here, and we're going to start this off with the beta maps. Keeping in mind that while we will be seeing 6 in the beta, they usually don't have them all available day 1 in the beta, and it's something they release over time as the beta goes on. And I suspect it'll be no different this time around. And the first one we're going to be seeing here is Blackheart, which is quite a small map. As you can see there, it is a 3-lane map, and we've got a pretty good indication of the general structure with all of the clips we've seen, including this new clip from the reveal trailer, where the player basically goes from one end of the map to the other, taking the middle route. And this one does seem to be a very basic formulaic sort of a layout here. I think this one's probably going to end up being quite popular in the community since they tend to really like fairly small, chaotic maps like this. After that, for our other small map in the beta, we have Cortex, and this one we haven't gotten nearly as much of an indication of the overall layout, but you can definitely see there's an interior area with some kind of a lab or something inside, as well as some exterior areas, including this catwalk that goes along the outside edge of the map. I can't speak to how this will play until we get our hands on it, but I like the vibe of it at least. Then getting into the medium maps that'll be in the beta, we have Toshin, which takes place in downtown Tokyo. Again, I'm really loving the vibe of this one overall, and this is the one where we saw that clip with the sniper collateral as well as the wall jump into the window. Then in the beta, we'll have access to Exposure, which takes place in the Australian outback, and this one we haven't seen a lot of clips of. However, we do get a bit of an overhead view here in the VTOL, so you can see kind of what the structure is going to be like. There's going to be the exterior lanes toward the outside as well as the ends of the map, and while the center of the map contains a building, it looks like a lot of the fighting will still take place outside, with some limited interior areas that you can access. After that one, we've got The Forge, which we've seen quite a few gameplay clips on. And this one has 2 buildings that are connected via a sky bridge. So the sides of the map are going to be the interior areas, and then the center of the map is a big open courtyard. And I'm liking what I'm seeing layout-wise here. It seems unique enough, but it seems to have 3 very clear, distinct 3 lanes to it, with nice separation between those lanes. And then finally for our beta maps, we have Imprint, which we've seen very little on. In fact, I think this is the only gameplay-related clip we've seen so far, just a couple brief seconds. So still a lot of questions up in the air about this map and how it's going to be laid out and how it will play. And that's all of the beta maps. Now let's move on to the rest of the maps in the game, starting it off once again with these small maps that we haven't already covered. The first one is Flagship, which we have seen many clips on. And this one takes place in a dry dock where they're repairing an aircraft carrier, and part of that aircraft carrier will be accessible. That's the interior area. And this, once again, just seems to be a fairly basic 3-lane design, not like perfectly symmetrical or anything, but it seems to have a very clear, standard 3-lane style structure. Then another small map we're going to have access to at launch is Paranoia. And this one's got some crazy hallucinogenic Black Ops stuff going on here with wheelchairs and stuff floating in the air. So a very interesting vibe that is going to tie in with the campaign of the game. And then finally, for small maps, we have Hijacked, which is from Black Ops 2, and it has been remastered multiple times already, so I'm sure most of you guys already know how this is going to play. Now let's move on to the medium-sized maps at launch. And this one is called Scar, which takes place in Alaska, so it's a bit of a snowy, muddy vibe. And it appears while there are some buildings that you can access, the majority of the fighting is going to be taking place outside on this map. After that, we have Colossus, which is an abandoned floating resort. So it's really run down and grimy. There are some interior areas as well as exterior areas to be fighting in. Although even with the interior areas, it looks like there's going to be a lot of openness to the sky. So aerial streaks are probably going to be fairly effective on this, even when players are in the inside areas. After that, we have Den, and I had to re-record this section because initially during the reveal, we really didn't see much of this map at all. However, they uploaded a separate video here, and in this, they showed off a bunch of different angles of Den, so we can see that here. Even with all these angles though, we still don't really get much of an indication of how this is laid out, so time will have to tell on that. But aesthetically, this one is very unique, and I think it looks great. Then we have Homestead. This is one we've seen quite a bit throughout the reveals with the beautiful Aurora Borealis in the background. And this is going to be a fairly wide open map. There is a cabin that you can access, as well as some small sheds it looks like as well for some cover. But for the most part, fighting looks like it's going to be taking place outside, and it's one of the few night maps we have in the game as well. And then finally for our medium maps, we have two more remastered maps from Black Ops 2. We've got Express as well as Raid. And there's not too much to say about these, aside from the fact that both of them now take place in Japan. And at least for Core 636, that just leaves us with the one large map we'll have in the game at launch, and this is called Retrieval. And this is yet another map where we've seen so little on. We saw this one very brief clip, and that's about it. We just know this is going to be quite large, and I'm very curious to see what the layout on this ends up looking like. And this just leaves us with our skirmish maps. The first one is Mission Edge, and this is the one we've seen most of our skirmish clips on so far, including the wingsuiting that we can see that will be available in this mode, but not Core 6v6. However, we did get a very brief clip on Tide as well, which is the other launch skirmish map that we'll be seeing. And there we go. That's going to wrap it up for all 18 multiplayer launch maps we're going to be seeing for Black Ops 7. And overall, I've been saying this pretty much every time we've talked about maps so far, but it just keeps getting reinforced the more we see and the more we learn about these maps. Visually speaking, I am loving what we're seeing here. There's so much visual variety, so many different color palettes and settings that they're working with. And this alone is going to be a really nice change of pace coming off of Black Ops 6, which doesn't really have nearly as much of that visual variety. Also, as I said toward the beginning of the video, I like the fact that most of what we're seeing is going to be medium maps. And also, every single one of these maps, at least, is going to be available in Core 6v6, outside of those two skirmish maps, of course. And I think that's great as well, so we're actually going to have a lot of variety in Core 6v6 right at launch. And really, at the end of the day, the most important thing is how these maps are going to play, so that has to do with their layout and structure, as well as how the spawns end up working out on these maps. And that's all stuff where we can't really judge that until we get our hands on it, or at the very least, see some actual full gameplays of people playing on the map, which you will be able to do next Tuesday, September 30th. I will be at COD Next. I will be live streaming that on Twitch, sharing all of my initial thoughts, impressions, feedback, criticism, and I'll be happy to test things out for you guys live as well. If you guys have any questions about anything or want to see something in action, as long as time permits, I'd be happy to cover all of that for you. So make sure you guys don't miss that. And this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. How are you feeling about the maps based on what we know so far in Black Ops 7? Are you guys generally liking what you're seeing here? Are you skeptical about any of these maps? Just let me know all of those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.